Mornings are better with a warm beverage, even for Latter-day Saints. Meet Postum, the ideal coffee alternative and proud sponsor of This Week in Mormons podcast. Spotted on the coffee aisle at Smith's Grocery or at your local nearby store. Can't locate it? No worries. Order it at postum.com. Explore delicious recipes to tailor your Postum experience. Start your day off right with Postum.
Welcome to This Week in Mormons, the Twin Sisters edition, with your host, Ariane Smith.
And Tiffany Hales.
And we have a special guest host today. We have Holly back with us. You want to say hi, Holly?
Hi, I'm Holly Casos.
Holly is Tiffany's friend. I love her so much. I got to meet her in person last year after listening to her come on with Tiffany a couple of times. Mm-hmm. I was very excited to have her join us today. It feels like when you're the younger sister and you get to hang out with your older sister and her cool friends. So I was thrilled that Holly said she would come on for this episode.
Yes. So welcome, Holly.
Thank you.
This is kind of fun. Here. We have only done a trio a couple of other times, and that's with our other sister.
Oh, that's right.
So I think this gives you kind of quasi.
Wow, it's almost like a sister.
Yeah, I know. Totally. So we're here for January.
We are. All of us apparently survived the holidays.
Yes.
Barely, but I did it.
We made it through, and now we have to survive January, which is more difficult than surviving the holidays in my book.
Agreed.
So, okay, we have to tell Holly about my husband's fame.
Oh, yes, we do. Holly does not know about your husband's fame.
We knew we had to talk about it this week because he is in the ranks with Ammon Bundy now.
Uh-huh.
But for different reasons.
Okay, I'm like, is he a Mormon behaving badly?
No. Okay. But let me give you the backstory.
Because you'll appreciate this.
Because this just happened today and I was dying laughing. Okay. So back, In-N-Out, Boise got its first In-N-Out in December.
And it was insane.
Which I should say, it was actually the first In-N-Out in Idaho at all. Yes. And people lost their ever flippin' minds.
Do you know how many hamburgers were sold on the first day?
I heard it was like
9,100.
And it was like a record.
A record.
Right?
Yeah. All-time record.
Yeah. It's crazy. So anyway, people went bananas. My husband was one of those people. He is a California boy.
Did he stand in line for
He has been waiting for years. He drove down there. I mean, he works from home. So he was like, well, I'm going to work from my car. Like, I could work at my home office or I could work at my car office. He drove down there at 7:30 a.m. on opening day. By 10:30, he was back home with burgers for me and all of us.
Okay, but you have to tell him how he decorated the car.
This is how he got his claim to fame.
Oh, is this the car I've seen on?
Yes, I've seen it.
This is the car you've seen.
Okay, so my children for Halloween this year, they wanted to be a burger and French fries, and I knew In-N-Out was coming, and so I'm Googling like burger costumes online, and I saw an In-N-Out burger and French fry costume, and I was like, I could make this happen. So I made them. One of them was a burger, one was a French fries in the In-N-Out dish, the logo, the whole thing.
And let me tell you, so freaking cute, Ariane. It was adorable. In fact, we will take Keith's picture with. Let me tell you, we'll post it on we'll post on the Twin Sisters Instagram.
We'll post the picture of him. And so what he did was, because we had joked on Halloween, we have to take these kids to In-N-Out opening. I bet they'll get a free burger, or at least like something cuts in line. Now the kids are in school, so they didn't get to go. But he took their costumes and he hung them on his truck. Once he got there, he put the French fries on top of his truck, and he hung the hamburger with the In-N-Out logo on the side
of the door.
Mirror. And so, of course, he ended up all over the news. Like,
I've seen it.
It was a great
photo. That was him.
Yeah, that's her husband.
They interviewed him. He was in the local news. And then he ended up like, how they have affiliates across the country. Like our sister in LA was I just saw your husband on the news in LA. And he was in the New York Post.
Oh my goodness.
He was
TMZ.
He was thrilled. He was eating it up. He has no regrets.
But now we have to talk about today's article that came out. So we thought this was all over and done with.
Yeah. Until today, an article came out.
I saw it. Okay. So again, our local newspaper, The Statesman, puts an article out today, and it says Idaho's top 10 cringeworthy, embarrassing stories from 2023. And it has his picture.
That's the
They have lots of pictures to choose from, and they chose
They
Keith.
picked him. He's like, why did they pick me? I said, I think you're clickbait. It's a good picture. It's much better than all the politicians because pretty much on this top 10 list, pretty much every cringy article were like political shenanigans of the past year, and Ammon Bundy, who was number 1 on the list.
So he's in the same article as
He's in the same article as Ammon Bundy.
He's been categorized, lumped into the same category.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
So I was like, you know what though? You are like the lighthearted ending to this article.
Exactly.
It was the last one on the list of cringe. Yeah. I'm like, they had to throw something fun in there.
Exactly, because everything
else was depressing. Book bans and Ammon Bundy.
Senator Jim Risch.
It was not a good year.
Shady politicians. Yeah, it was rough. So
anyway, we will put Keith's picture on our twin sisters' Instagram, and then you can see Keith's picture, and you can also see the adorable costumes that Ariane made for her kids.
Also, I will add, he did get a free burger.
Oh, he did?
You didn't tell me he got a free burger.
He got a free meal. The manager came out.
That's so cool.
And gave him a voucher for a free meal. All the In-N-Out people were freaking out about it. They were like, this is amazing.
Well, kudos to you. I think
yes. And he did give me, he said, I told everyone you made it.
My wife did this.
That is awesome.
Oh, that is awesome. So yeah, my first part of December was really hectic and then things calmed down. So I actually had a really nice, calm Christmas break. I got to do tons of crafts between Christmas and New Year's, and it was just the best therapy I needed.
So fun.
So
I love that.
Fantastic.
Holly, how about your Christmas? I know your Christmas was crazy.
It was crazy. I had all of my kids in town, so there were 14 people in my house.
Wow.
Because not that I have 14 kids, don't get me wrong,
but it's their kids, their significant others,
my
in-laws,
and
outlaws.
Grandkids yet, do you?
I have no grandkids.
No grandkids yet.
No.
Yeah.
So yeah, that it was crazy. Just all tons of fun, tons of chaos, tons of food, everything.
So fun.
So it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
I love that.
And there was even a wedding in all of that. So it was a fabulous.
One of yours got married?
Yes.
Oh, that's exciting.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hence the reason they all had to come home to celebrate the wedding.
Well, no, it was really more that they were all coming home. And so she decided this is the moment. Let's do it when all my sisters are here. Because 2 of my daughters live internationally. So they only come home once a year.
Yeah. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
All right. Well, before we move into our news stories tonight, I want to give a shout out. This year for 2024, This Week in Mormons has a new sponsor, and our new sponsor is Postum. Now, I have never tried Postum. Ariane has never tried Postum.
I never had heard of it, but luckily we have a Postum expert.
We do
love Postum.
Who happens to be here tonight, and we didn't even know
We didn't even know. So, Holly, tell us, so Ariane and I will be acquiring some Postum in the next couple of weeks. My goal for 2024 is I'm going to figure out a bunch of really fun Postum recipes, like not only drink recipes, because Postum is a drink, it's a coffee alternative, but I have seen some recipes for some desserts and some things like that.
I've never tried recipes.
So
that's exciting.
I am going to try that out in 2024. But tell me about Postum, since you have some personal real world experience.
Well, first of all, the best way to drink Postum, and everybody will tell you this is wrong, but this is my favorite current way. Is to get a cup of it, but then go to the store and get this oat milk caramel creamer that's liquid and pour it in, and it's like a little caramel macchiato thing. It's delicious.
Oh, can do you find that like in the milk aisle?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can use any creamer. That's just my current favorite one.
So you still drink it to this day?
All the time.
Because you said you started on your mission.
I did start on my mission. When I was on a mission in Spain, there were no heaters in any of the apartments. So there would be one space heater that was under a table, and you would like sit there and then like put the tablecloth around your legs so that you would get hot. So really your only alternative was to drink hot drinks. So I was drinking a lot of herbal tea. There was like a Spanish version of Postum, but then I asked my mom to send me stuff. Like I just had to stay warm because I was freezing. And hot chocolate, well, I mean, it can.
You can only do so much hot chocolate.
It's so sweet,
it's so
right?
Yeah.
So this was amazing. And then it's my kids like Postum. It's just the happening drink at my house.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, that was very timely that you are here with us tonight. Okay. So like I said, we are Postum virgins. Hopefully by the time we record next month, we will have begun our exploration of Postum.
We will dabble.
But I really do like the idea of the caramel creamer. That sounds delicious.
You can't, I mean, maybe
because you have to sweeten
you have
it,
to
right?
sweeten it. It's just like a coffee, right? Don't start with it black. You'll not be happy.
Okay. Good to know.
All right.
All right. Well, let's get into some stories for tonight. First of all, it's been a very slow news week. So we don't have a ton of news stories, which was good because I ran across a video back in December, and it was a documentary that KUER, which is the PBS station down in Utah, had done. And it was a documentary called A Sister Must Sacrifice. And it was about diet culture and missions. And so I thought, okay, with the first of the year, a lot of people make New Year's resolutions that are health related, maybe weight related. And there is just a lot to unpack in diet culture, whether it relates to missionaries or whether it relates to members of the church. So I thought what we would do tonight is, before we get to like stories that have happened in the news in the last week or so, we are just going to talk about this documentary. And we put it up on the Facebook earlier this week, and some of the Facebook comments, and just some of the diet culture and things surrounding that in association with members of the church, and just have a discussion.
Which I can't believe we've never done. Sometimes I feel like we've hit every single topic there is.
And then you find one and
we
you're like,
never really have like deep dived on this.
We have not deep dived on this. So to start off with, the documentary is only 11 minutes long. If you want more information, first of all, we'll link the documentary, but there was also a podcast that KUER did again back in November.
It was longer.
The podcast was about an hour.
Good too.
And so the podcast has excerpts from the girl who was the initial focus in the film, but it also has a lengthy interview with the filmmaker. And the filmmaker dealt with diet culture issues on her mission. And so that's what kind of inspired her. And she had a lot to unpack when she got home from her mission. That's what kind of inspired her to make this film. And then they had a counselor on there as well, talking about some of the issues. So this film opens with this sister, and she probably went on her mission about 10 years ago. And ironically, she's from Eagle, Idaho. I didn't know her, didn't recognize her. And she just talks about that she goes to her physical for her mission, because all missionaries have to have a physical. And her general practitioner said, do you want me to prescribe to you an appetite suppressant? Are you concerned with gaining weight on your mission? And she said, oh, no, I'm fine. I don't need that. So she goes out to her mission. And this is fairly common. She is brand new out there on her mission. She gets put with sisters who have been out there for a while. And these are sisters who are getting ready to go home. And apparently there is this thing. And I asked my daughter about this because she served a mission. She began in 2019 and ended in 2020. It's called 6 Months to Sexy, where you spend the last 6 months of your mission focusing on looking really good when you come home from your mission. And so she goes out there on her mission and she gets hooked up with these companions who are focused on 6 months to sexy. So everything just kind of revolved around diet culture. And she started, dealing with some diet culture and some eating disorders that she'd never had before.
Well, it's really hard if you've got a companion that you're with 24/7 who is eating a certain way and obsessing over it, to not let that affect you.
Yes.
Especially when you're the beginning of the mission and you're young and impressionable and you're looking up to these people like, well, they must know something I don't know.
You're still trying to figure it out. Yeah, but that would be hard.
Well, and this is one of the reasons we invited you, Holly, is Ariane and I, neither one of us served missions, and you did. And so, and you've had daughters that have served missions. And so, I did have a conversation with my daughter, but, I don't have any firsthand knowledge in this as it relates to the mission field.
Yeah.
So what you watched this documentary, what are some of the things that struck you?
Well, first of all, I thought to myself, I'm really glad this was not happening in my mission.
Okay.
I mean, I served a long time ago. So it was like 1991. So we're talking like over 30 years ago.
Yes.
And it was different. I was in Spain. There's no fast food anywhere. Hardly any members ever fed us, and we had a very restricted budget. So we were eating like pretty much rice and veggies and chicken all the time.
Well, when I saw this, I wondered if this is way more of an American issue when you serve in the States.
Yeah.
Because
like
when you don't, sometimes you're trying to figure out what you can eat.
Exactly. No, I mean, like my daughter served in Kansas, and there was a great deal. She was Spanish speaking, so a lot of Hispanic people, and they loved to feed the missionaries, and so she was struggling with the fact that there was just always so much food, and they wanted to keep. If she emptied her plate, they'd want to put more on it, and so how do you manage yourself around that?
Yeah,
which is a real issue for anybody, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think that, and I do know that like in my mission president's wife, she owned a modeling agency before she went. So when we would have area conferences, or zone conferences, and she would come, she would talk to us about appearance, and she was very appearance oriented. And I remember that part was very stressful to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been a larger sized woman. And so I knew I wasn't hitting the model appearance that like she was looking for and never was going to. And so I worried about that a lot. Like, did I look like a proper representative of this church? Because
approachable, like she was. So when she did that, were elders in the room too? Like,
yes, but she also talked to elders about it. It actually wasn't just sister oriented. Like she would ask them, they needed to make sure they had haircuts, that they were grooming their face properly, that their clothes were like, ironed.
Right.
So like that.
It went both ways.
So it did go both ways. And I really did appreciate her for that, because it wasn't just targeting the girls.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Well, and it's interesting in the documentary and on the podcast, just the vast variety of experiences. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I asked my sister-in-law over Christmas, she had served a mission, and she said, oh yeah, there's definitely some pressure like towards the end. For sure. And she served many years ago, but some of these in the documentary had like some real rough experiences with mission presidents pushing this, which I don't think is normal, but
I think it's
happens
obviously been amped up. Yeah. I mean, you see it in the Mormon culture aside from just missions with women, and that perfectionism, like they've taken it to a whole new level. I mean, when you drive into Utah, you see so many bulletin boards for plastic surgery, and I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that it's like one of the highest. Plastic surgery
per capita. It is one of the highest plastic surgery places.
And that age is just an age where you're going through that. Your self-esteem and you're not confident. And there is, even if you don't go on a mission, I remember, I going to BYU, you're going to get that freshman 15.
Exactly.
Like everybody jokes about that, but I think a mission is probably a much more intense experience than being at BYU with, you've got 6 roommates and you're joking about it, but.
No, exactly. I mean, I do remember like my mom around that stage when I was going on my mission, like she was extremely worried about, of course, my weight. I mean, it's not like I was huge. I was just plus size, right? Mm-hmm. And like worried that I would never find someone to marry. Yes. And then she, like her parting comment to me, which is ironic, I know, was maybe you'll find someone to marry on your mission, which made me mad because that was not where I was going. And like, what? But then of course
she did. No, and I think, I mean, our moms would have grown up in a very similar generation, because you and I are about the same age. And I remember my mom, being very obsessed with her weight and her looks and her appearance
all the time.
And I am built very differently from my mom. I always joke. I'm like, oh my gosh, if somebody saw me and my mom side by side, they would not think we were related. My mom was 5'8". She was 125 pounds on a bad day. She had no boobs and wide hips. I am 5'3". I got all sorts of boobs and no hips. And I was 125 pounds in fourth grade. Well, I probably wasn't 125 pounds in fourth grade, but, genetically, I am built like my dad. I am not built like my mom. And I just remember, again, I'm not throwing shade at my mom or anything like that. She was a product of her generation, and I don't think, she intended any harm by anything she did or said. It was generational.
It was the messaging they got and versus the messaging we got. It's like night and day.
Yeah. And women really were in that age created for beauty, right?
Yes.
Like that was what they were told. Like their worth was in their looks.
Yeah. But I too remember my mom being like, you got to lose weight. You'll never find a man. And then you go to a place like BYU, when you're in that kind of age range where, you're thinking, okay, marriage, relationships, things like that. And everywhere are skinny, beautiful people. And it really can just in many regards mess with your mind. And I also remember, after I was first married, my husband and I lived in Utah for about 13 years, and my sister-in-laws would come to visit, and they lived outside of Utah. They would come and they would say, how do you live here? You go into Target and nobody is wearing their sweats in Target. They are dressed to the nines, full makeup, glammed up for Target.
I would come and visit you and they would be wearing jeans and heels. I was like, what is going on? Their heels at all, but be with jeans to Target.
Exactly. So there is this, there is this cultural thing that I think these girls go out on missions with, because again, it's not just mission specific. It's related, I think, to diet culture in America, and then an even smaller, diet culture within the LDS community. Again, because, scriptures that say, the natural man is an enemy to God, and, you need to be healthy. And the word of wisdom, tells you, can be interpreted as, restrict this, restrict that. And, even if things like sugar aren't mentioned in the word of wisdom, well, that's not healthy for you. And the word of wisdom is about being healthy. And
well, I think it didn't help either. I was looking at the research, and in 2007, weight guidelines started to become a thing for the church. So, in order to go on a mission, right?
Yes.
And I remember seeing that and thinking, I don't know if I would have been able to go, because I tend to skew heavy. People don't think I'm as heavy when they look at me, but I've got apparently really heavy bones or something. I don't know. So, I mean, I was close to that standard, and I'm like, wow, that is a lot, because now you really are thinking about how much you weigh as a missionary out in the field, right?
Yeah.
That's true. So you, Tiffany, looked up some articles.
I did. After I saw the video, I was like, let's see what's out there on the internet.
On like the church website.
On the church website.
So Tiffany found a slew of articles about this, but we picked one in particular that was very relatable to this. And it's a few years old. It's from 2019, and it was actually an Ensign article. And it was written, it's a personal story from a member of the church by a woman named Sierra Hewlett. And she talked about her mission and how she began to have eating disorder issues on her mission. Kind of the same thing as this documentary. Everyone told her she'd gained weight. She kind of started to think that her worth was tied to the scale number. She ate as little as possible. As she talked about, how fasting on your mission can kind of play into that.
Exactly, because it's a spiritual thing, but yet a good excuse to not eat.
Right. So she just started this, awful cycle of restricting, binging, purging. And she talks about how she didn't realize that it was really a problem till after her mission. And she went on a hike, like a 4-hour hike, ate a granola bar and felt guilty. And then she started to realize, okay, this is a problem.
It's a problem.
So anyway, it was a really good article. She just talked about how she came back from that and overcame it. She talked about how God factored into that.
Yes.
Her faith helped her continue to have the will to keep fighting and overcome this. But then she also talked about years of hard work and therapy, which I think is very important that she mentioned.
It's not a quick fix.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And she says that in the article, this was not
She does.
One or two things and I was done. She makes 3 really good points.
Yeah, she does. Towards the end, she had 3 really good things that she said. The first thing she said was the power of yet. And I love this. I actually had a Relief Society teacher that used this exact wording once in a lesson.
Oh.
She said, put the word yet at the end of your sentences and it completely changes your perspective. So she used the example in this article. She said, if you add the word yet, it changes the sentence. Like, I don't have a job yet. I don't love my body or honor it yet. I can't handle my addiction, anxiety, depression yet. And I love that.
I love that too.
If I can remember to like put that word on, it just gives you hope, right?
It does.
Like, this is not final.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then the second thing she talked about was the power of patience and compassion for yourself. Just learning that patience, like you said, Holly, it can take a lot of time. And then the third thing she talked about was the power of mindfulness and being still and finding time for God and pondering and not just being so distracted by the things that we have. Anyway, she just kind of shared this as a message of hope in overcoming. It was a really good article, and it was interesting to see. Clearly, the church is aware if they publish this
in the Ensign.
And you found other church
articles.
I found
other church articles related.
And, it's not necessarily unique to a mission.
No.
This can apply to anyone at any stage.
Right?
But it's interesting, this perspective of missionaries.
Yes.
It's just something I never thought about before. Like, oh, missionaries are struggling with that?
And I did find it interesting that there in the documentary that they were saying that there were mission presence and programs where they were actually saying that if you restricted your food, that actually you might get more baptisms because you'd be more righteous.
Yeah.
And,
as an obedience.
Right.
Thing.
Yeah.
And one of them had like a contest, like to lose weight within the mission. I was like, well, that's wild.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening a lot, but clearly it's happening if someone had this experience.
Exactly.
Well,
and that kind of leads us into our next article, which you're going to talk about. This is very true. I mean, I think that there's a lot of it on the mission. When I asked my daughter about it, she said it wasn't anything that, her mission president put forth, but it was a constant topic of conversation.
Just kind of in the mission culture.
And I think that that's maybe, a microcosm of a larger diet culture that we have, not only within our faith, but within America, but specifically to our faith. I really liked this article. Holly, talk about this article.
It was fascinating. It was an article about a woman in the church, and she was a young mom. She had 2 young kids, and she was probably, she said she was about 70-ish pounds overweight after she'd had the 2 kids. And she got called as the young women president in her ward. And that some mom came up to her and said, she's like, hey, I'm so glad that they're letting you be a young woman president because the girls need to learn that their value isn't tied to their weight. And she was very taken aback by that.
Because she said they usually don't let bigger women be young women.
I mean, it was the truth, right?
But to have someone point that
out, I know.
It's
totally crazy. Wild. But it also made her really take a look at all of it and how true it was.
Yeah, I mean, it probably really got her mind thinking. Honestly, when I read this, it got my mind thinking. I was like, I never really noticed that. I thought about it. And then I was like, I think this is a thing.
I have always noticed this.
I have always noticed this too.
Especially in the general young.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I have noticed it there.
Because I remember, I don't remember what her name was, but I remember there was a woman that was called into the Relief Society General Presidency once. And she was a larger woman and she was hilarious, but she didn't fit the stereotype. No. And I was in awe of her. I was like, this is hopeful, right? It was just so hopeful. Yeah. So I have really noticed that. I mean, in saying that, I've been in many a presidency, but never the president.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, which I don't want to be. So.
Yeah. Not that we're campaigning, but no, I mean, I think especially with the young women, and I don't think that this is an intentional bias.
No.
I think it is, I think that it is something that is probably
it's like
subconscious where they're like, okay, you know, who are we going to call? We need a really good role model for the young girls.
So she actually talked about this because she talked about like, I wanted to kind of understand where the origin of this was coming. Mm-hmm. And she took it back to polygamy, which
she did.
I was, what? But she talked about how back in those days that a man's spirituality was determined by the number of wives. And that when a man was allowed to add a wife, he was usually going to choose one that was younger and more attractive, kind of like superior, right?
Yeah.
And so physical desirability became one of the markers for a woman in order to join the polygamous group, right? And anyhow, so she's like 200 years later, even though it's probably not like the way they are thinking consciously, there is a little bit of subconscious that there's this like mix of men are in charge and women, if they please men, tend to gain power.
Right.
And female beauty is the quickest way to please a man subconsciously, right? Mm-hmm. And so all of these things kind of play into it. And even though it's not like they're not really thinking that way, it's kind of going to just come out subconsciously. And so you forget that really like females come in all shapes and sizes and can still be spiritual independent of that. Mm-hmm. And that there's a lot of females that do feel insecure about themselves and how much their value is because of how much it's tied to appearance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was super interesting to think about. Like you said, I've just noticed before that the general presidencies all look a certain way.
Yes.
But I never had like applied that, like, what have I observed in my own ward? And then I read this and I was like, oh yeah, this is a thing.
It is. It's icky, but it is.
This is a thing. And also, besides the looks, being like a yes person, like and like you like mentioned, very, agreeable, follow the rules, never going to stir the pot. That definitely is.
Oh yeah.
This is why I will never
she's never
a young women's president or president of anything.
Maybe that's my problem too.
She is not a yes girl.
No, in fact, the couple of times that I've had to fill in for my Relief Society president at Ward Council, I think they think, when's Tracy coming back?
Get this one out of here.
Get this one out of here.
She's actually, a live wire.
Tracy's pretty feisty too. So I think that they're like, who let the two of them play together?
But maybe that's good. Maybe we need to have more women that actually don't, I mean, not that they don't play nice, but they actually voice their opinions. And I've been thinking of this because something happened in our stake that made me quite angry. And I stewed on it for a couple of weeks and I'm like, oh, I can't just be that person that just sits and gets angry. I actually need to be proactive and voice this problem, not because I want change, but because I think that's the only way to evoke change.
Yeah, I've been feeling the same way lately. I've always been a sit back and be quiet type of person. And lately I've been feeling more like, you know, we probably could do something about it if we spoke up in certain circumstances.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, we could go on talking about this topic for quite some time. There were a number of comments on our Facebook post on it, and we're running a little, we're not short on time yet, but we will be by the time we cover everything else. And so I'll just encourage anybody who wants to go read the Facebook comments. The majority of the Facebook comments were like, this is really not encouraged by a mission. It's probably more of a personal thing. And I think that is probably true. It's probably few and far between that mission presidents are encouraging this dieting culture. but I think the girls arrive there with that already there, and it's
yes.
something that's discussed. So anyway, but keeping on that same topic of food, there was a very interesting opinion piece in the Salt Lake Tribune.
This article was so fun. This was by Eli McCann.
Again, ties into the diet and food culture we've been talking about all night.
This is by Eli McCann for the Tribune, and he is talking about the title is, no matter how you serve it, slice it, or pour it, Latter-day Saints prepare too much food. Oh my gosh, this article resonated with all three of us so much. He talks about how they were at like a wedding and they walked into the kitchen area afterwards, and like nearly 20 large boxes of massive frosted cookies sat unopened and untouched. There must have been hundreds of cookies in there.
This was his sister's wedding.
This was after the wedding.
Yes, after the wedding. After
leftover cookies.
Yes.
And then they are like, what do we do with all these cookies? And they were giving them away to anybody they could give them to. Shelters, homeless people.
And what's so funny is they calculated that his parents, when they ordered these cookies, ordered enough for each guest to have half a dozen cookies.
Oh my gosh.
And then everybody was like, why?
And the mom was just like, I don't know what I was thinking.
And this Eli McCann is like, I know why. It's in our heritage.
Right? We're supposed to have a 30 years, what do they say? A 1 year supply? 2 year supply?
Well, it started out as 2 years, and then it went to 1. And now I think the leaders are like, can we try 90?
Yes.
Can we work for 90?
Yes. So he is just joking about how we were raised to overfeed, and we, have always been taught about preparing food and like the miracle of Jesus and the loaves and the fishes. And he said, to descend from Mormonism is to fear of running out of food more than to fear waste.
No truer statement has been said.
Which is so true. So anyway, I just thought it was hilarious. He talks about how his spouse, they were having a dinner party and his husband pulled out 12 spears of asparagus from the oven for 15 people attending. And he freaked out and was like, this isn't enough. And his spouse was like, well, not everybody's going to eat asparagus. And like, sure enough,
and
they finished the meal.
Well, and what's funny is Eli was preparing potato salad for I think kind of a neighborhood party, and his husband says to him, okay, small bowl, there's only 4 of us,
right?
And then he says, I'm in the kitchen preparing it, it's like my dead ancestors took over.
Yeah, he says,
and I peeled 20 pounds of potatoes
and a dozen eggs. Anyway, it was hilarious.
So I was laughing about this because, remember, I had 14 people at my house for 2.5 weeks for Christmas, including 2 vegetarians, a vegan, a gluten-free because of celiac, and someone allergic to peppers.
Oh.
So I had gotten just, everything. I
don't know how you managed that.
I could.
Like, mad props
to you.
It was so hard. But anyhow, so I bought so much food, and they went through a lot, but there was also obviously more there again because, of this very same reason.
I know, it's
and
so
my birthday present to myself, because everyone left the morning of my birthday was when the last person left, is I went to my fridge and I just got rid of everything that was left in my fridge to have a clean start, because it was just so overwhelming. Yes. There were so many leftovers. I didn't know what anything was.
Yeah, so funny. Well, this just reminds me, like every ward party you go to, if you are ever on the cleanup crew, you're in the kitchen going, what do we do with this? Who wants this? Take this. Who will take this? Who will take this? Like,
with one exception, because my ward party for Christmas this year, they actually didn't have enough food.
Really?
How did that happen?
I don't know how. I wasn't in charge of it.
So did you guys do dinner or breakfast?
Breakfast.
That's everyone's worst fear. We're in shock. We're like, just like the article said.
I'm in total shock.
I know.
Nothing is worse than running out of food.
I came late. I didn't have any food, but I was okay with that.
I was going to say, I'm guessing you were like, I'm here for the spirit.
I don't really go for it because it's potluck food. I don't really go for potluck
not your thing.
Food.
Yeah. Okay. That's so funny.
All right. Well, we will wrap up our food discussion here, and maybe we'll revisit this topic in another time as maybe more articles come out, because this has been a very fascinating discussion that I've thoroughly enjoyed. But let's get to some news stories. There was one that came out this week about the Tab Cats, also known as the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square. So Holly, tell us about this Tab Cat story.
Okay, so they have a list. It was written on January 9th of the top 10 most Spotify streamed Mormon Tabernacle songs.
Yes.
So, of course, it starts with 10 and then you have to keep scrolling down. So I kept waiting and waiting. When you guys looked at this, were there any that you were like, oh, I know this is going to be on here?
Yes. The one that there was one that was missing.
What was
I was shocked wasn't on there. Come Thou Font.
Oh, that's true.
See, I thought it would be Redeemer of Israel. I was like, where's Redeemer of Israel?
Yeah,
I was pretty confident it was going to be considered the Lilies. And I knew
that one
I got number 2,
yes.
So I felt pretty good.
But I have to tell you, I was shocked at number 1. So I'll let you tell what number 1 is, and then I'll tell you why I was shocked, and then I'll
tell you why I was not shocked.
You can music explain it to us, because we are not music people, and you can music explain it to us.
Okay, so the number 1, and this is by number 2, Consider the Lilies, had 2.8 million downloads, but the number 1 was the Lord's Prayer. And it had 7.3 million downloads.
That's a big jump.
And see, that's what blew me away too.
Yeah.
Almost 5 million.
I have never heard this.
I have heard the choir sing the Lord's Prayer, but I have not heard this version with the guest soloist.
Yes.
So I think you're going to tell us the guest soloist is what took it over the top.
100%, because every other one of these songs, it was just the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. But number 1 had Andrea Botticelli singing with the Lord's Prayer. And 2 reasons I thought, number 1, having the guest artist is huge.
Yeah.
He's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, he just did a tour this year, which I was supposed to go to a concert. And then we had a death in the family and I couldn't go.
So he had a hot 2023.
He had a hot 2023.
Okay.
And on top of that, the Lord's Prayer is a very... Well, I served in Spain. People are saying the Lord's Prayer.
Right.
The Catholic people,
it's cross-religious.
It's cross-religious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you're not just hitting Mormons here. You're hitting across the religious spectrum. And it was a beautiful song.
Mm-hmm.
So between those 3 things, I can see how it would come out of not just the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, but the whole spectrum of why.
This makes sense.
Interesting.
Okay, I'm going to have to go repent and listen to it now, because like I said, I've never heard it before.
It is beautiful. Okay. You'll be able to sing most of the lyrics.
Oh, okay.
The one other one on the list that I was surprised at was number 5, which is Slow Down.
Yeah, I've never
Sissel. Because I had never heard of it.
I've never heard of it.
But Sissel had the solo in there. So, because I hadn't heard that one either. I was like, what is this? So Sissel must have brought some people to that one too.
I'm also interested that I'm trying to be like Jesus was number 4. Yeah. It's a primary song. But cool.
Yeah.
It was a good song.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. We will give our last MoTab update. MoTab. Oh.
I know I keep doing that too.
We will give our last Tab Cats update. Lloyd Newell, the longtime announcer for the choir, indicated a couple months ago that he was stepping down because he was going to go serve a mission. Just recently, they announced where Lloyd K. Newell will be serving, and he will be a mission president for the Los Angeles mission.
So interesting.
He's headed to California.
Do you think he'll get a star on the Walk of Fame? Or
Probably not.
Maybe they should start a Utah Walk of Fame.
Now I'm really curious to see who they're going to put in his place.
I know.
It's got to be a really good voice.
They have not announced that yet.
The countdown is on if he's leaving this summer.
Yeah, he would. Mission presidents usually start around July 1st, so he should be taking off here anytime soon. So, okay, let's move on to our next story. This will be kind of a quick take. There is a brewery in Utah called B. Wilder Brewing Company, and they had a beer that was called Deseret IPA. And apparently the church did not like a beer using the name Deseret. So the church basically sent them a cease and desist letter, and they were kind of, the brewery was kind of funny about it. They put out a newsletter and they said, Unfortunately, a large tax-exempt Utah-based entity wasn't pleased with our use of the word Deseret. We have been asked to drop our trademark and discontinue the brand. And so they say that they just didn't have enough money to fight with the church, that they just decided that they would do that. And the article is kind of funny because it talks about, apparently there was a Taylorsville coffee shop that used an image of a gold angel Moroni as seen on top of the church temples. And the shop pulled that image from its advertising and instead displayed the warning letter they received from the church's intellectual property division.
I thought that was pretty
So
funny.
funny.
So the church is out there protecting their intellectual property.
But it was also interesting. The article pointed out many other businesses around Utah, not church affiliated, that use Deseret.
Well, I was
also not affiliated with beer.
True.
So.
And I was just wondering, like, how is the word proprietary? I'm not a lawyer, but like, I have a friend whose name is Deseret. Like,
right. Like it's
people use
it's different
the name,
than the word
right?
Mormon.
Yeah.
It's like more of a common
like, did
word.
we create this?
It's actually from the Book of Mormon. So it's in the Book of Mormon, which of course we own the copyright to the Book of Mormon. We were going to be the state of Deseret until the government shut that down and said, no, you're not going to be the state of Deseret. But
I don't know. It's very interesting.
It is very interesting. Well, what the church said is, I don't think the church claimed that necessarily that it was proprietary and only the church could use it. The church said, listen, we use that name on other food brands and we don't want cross confusion. So that's how they did it. And they do use it on other food brands because
from like the Bishop's Storehouse.
Exactly, from the Bishop's Storehouse.
Okay.
So that they weren't claiming exclusive use of the word Deseret. They were just saying
this is in the same category. We can't have it in the same category.
We don't want confusion. We don't want people to think that we are endorsing beer. So, not that anyone would think that, but
you're going to get that at the Bishop's store.
All right. Let's move on to Ariane's, I think, most favorite story ever.
This story is amazing. I'm just going to say we're early into 2024, but this is high. This might be my favorite. So there is a course being taught at BYU, Utah, Provo. This semester, it is a Taylor Swift course.
No, it is a whole semester on Taylor Swift, her lyrics and philosophy.
It's a philosophy. It's in the poli-sci department.
Yes.
And the course is called, it's Poly 360, and it's called Miss Americana, Taylor Swift, Ethics and Political Society. So it's like an ethics course.
I really wish I could go.
It sounds amazing. I really want to be there. But what I loved about this article was they really highlighted, this was from the Daily Universe. They highlighted the professor that is teaching this course. His name is Ryan Davis. He is a longtime Taylor Swift fan.
He's a Swiftie. He's like legit.
A legit Swiftie.
He went to 3 of her Eras concerts.
He's middle-aged. I think from the picture, he's middle-aged. This is not like a 20-something TA that is running this course. This guy is middle-aged. He is smarty pants. Like he has degrees. Didn't they say from Princeton? Yes. Philosophy from Princeton, political philosophy from Princeton, all kinds of graduate degrees. And
he's a very intellectual thinker.
Yes.
And that's why it is so odd. It seems like a dichotomy that he is teaching a Taylor Swift course.
So he spent the past year, obviously he went to her concerts, multiple.
Oh, he has a full life-size cardboard cutout of Taylor Swift in his office.
I was going to say, not did he just go to the concerts, but he dressed up.
He dressed up. He went with his sister. It's so sweet. And he spent the past year writing this course because he just, his brain sees so much like philosophical meat in her lyrics,
which is true.
You could make a course out of this, which I 100% agree.
I know. In fact, I wish I knew her lyrics better because there are so many life circumstances. You could really quote Taylor Swift in if you know her lyrics better.
I've got one.
Okay,
I found one. Go. Okay. So in all the chaos of everything, Christmas, people didn't leave. My last daughter left the 7th of January. And I don't want to take all the Christmas stuff down because it was like, she lives in Japan. Like I wanted her to just still feel like it was Christmas vacation. So in Lover,
Lover being Taylor Swift
says,
album,
we can leave the Christmas lights up till January. This is our place. We make our own rules. Thank you, Taylor Swift.
I quote that to my teenage daughters all the time. Like when they're complaining about something, I'll say, "This is our house. We make the rules."
Thank you, Taylor Swift.
Yes. Anyway, I just think it is darling. This professor, I love that he's like legit.
Yeah.
And it talks like they interviewed one of his colleagues in the poli-sci department.
And he'd go hiking with his colleagues.
Professor Meekum, I don't know how you say it. And he is like slowly converting this colleague to like understanding that like, okay, there's some meat here.
Yes.
So I thought it was adorable. So you all should go on and read about this Professor Ryan Davis. I would like to go back to BYU and audit
I would like
class.
to audit this class.
Well, it did say that the course is full for the semester, and I'm sure this is one of those courses, where they max it out at 30.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to have to move this into one of those big classrooms, like
it's
seating 200
going
classroom.
to be wildly popular.
It's going to be wildly popular and impossible to get into.
Mm-hmm.
So, they should just add it to one of the core courses that fulfills an elective requirement.
Right.
I'm just saying that right now. Why not?
The one thing I am curious about is how hard is it going to be to pass this class? Like, what do you have to do to pass?
Will you still love Taylor Swift at the end?
Right. Or will you be so mad at her because you can't, all those papers?
Well, I thought it was interesting too that this article said these Taylor Swift courses are popping up at like lots of universities. It's not just a BYU thing. Like there are other college professors that are finding this worth the study. So
wow.
All right. Well, moving on from Taylor Swift, we're going to move on to Donald Trump because doesn't that seem like a logical jump?
Quite a transition to.
Sure. All roads lead back to Donald Trump
exactly.
in 2024. We don't know how. We don't know why. We don't understand it. But here we are.
But they will. So a few weeks ago, I know I've covered this. I don't know if I covered it with you or in the Taffy edition. There was a poll that came out that was done by Deseret News that said Americans think that Trump is more religious than Mitt Romney. And that just left me scratching my head. I was just like, how is this possible? How do we get there?
This does not make sense.
So the Deseret News did another poll, and one of their reporters who had covered Trump extensively when the Deseret News was formulating questions for this poll said, I want you to ask these people who believe that Donald Trump is more religious why they feel that way. Let's get to the reasoning behind, because she had an idea. She thought her hunch was that he is seen by many of his supporters as religious, not because of his private behaviors, but because of his public support for religious freedom and protection. And that made sense to me because certainly his private behaviors do not scream, I am a religious person. Mitt Romney's private behaviors scream, I am a religious person. Anyway, sure enough, when they conducted this poll, they found out that 64% of Republicans who said Trump is a person of faith said it was because he's actively involved in the religious community. The most common response was it was because he defends people of faith in the United States. And what's interesting is when they ask about Joe Biden and they ask Democrats, 69% of Democrats viewed Joe Biden as a person of faith, but only 35% of them thought that he defended people of faith in the United States.
This was so interesting to me.
I
feel like a puzzle has been solved.
Exactly.
A mystery. And it makes so much sense to me.
It does.
And this is really interesting in a Latter-day Saint perspective. Because we have had so many conference talks in recent years about defending religion.
Yes.
And I feel like this is making me understand a little bit why some people are drawn to him.
Yeah. It made me think, though, like my question was, is it more important for someone to have someone who defends religion or is religious to be your leader?
Right.
Like, what?
Yeah, it's interesting to see, like, why does that take priority over? Because typically, I feel like as Latter-day Saints, typically we're known for being kind of judgmental about how you live your private life, right? But that is not translating in this
not at
situation.
All. Mm-hmm.
Is it? I don't know. It's so interesting. Everybody's just worried about religious freedom right now?
Apparently so. But like I said, I was grateful just because that initial poll left me just kind of scratching my head going, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, now I'm connecting dots and now I understand why people would view Donald Trump as more religious than Mitt Romney if they are looking at it in terms of defending religious freedom. And I think that I'm not saying Mitt Romney doesn't defend religious freedom. I think Mitt Romney very much defends religious freedom, but I think people don't perceive that way about Mitt Romney.
Well, and Trump is smart. He's hitting on this
exactly
as a talking point, and other people might not have done that. Like he's figured out his way in.
Exactly. Yeah. So. All right. Well, since it is the new year, we have New Year's resolutions.
Oh, yes.
Now, let me give a disclaimer on these New Year's resolutions before you talk about them. This is an article in the Salt Lake Tribune. Okay. I want to be very clear. These are not our New Year's resolutions, but resolutions that others would like to see. So if you don't like the resolution, don't get mad at us. Get mad at the Salt Lake Tribune.
This was hilarious. This was an article by Dave Noyce. The first little tidbit of the article, he had taken some pieces of Sam Brunson's article on By Common Consent. He wrote an article recently about and it was actually really good about how we could let women have more male-only callings that are not necessarily tied to the priesthood. So he had some ideas there of how we could get women more involved in the church. So Dave Noyce started off with that part of the article. And then at the bottom, he posted these resolutions. So what the Tribune did was they called for readers to submit their 2024 resolutions for the church. And every week they've been publishing a few. So this was the second week that they published these.
And they're hilarious.
They are so funny. I'm dying. I'm like, I hope they do this for many more months because I want to read them all. They said they got 700 and
they got a lot
submissions. So like we said, these are not our resolutions. These are people submitted to the Salt Lake Tribune. So I'm just going to read a few that I thought were really good. Some of them are serious. One says, strive toward church leadership becoming diverse like God's children. I was like, that's a great one. Increase diversity, equity, and inclusion within the church. Someone said, institute genuine political neutrality within the church. Then they go awry. Some are just hilarious. And some are like, what? This was one that I was like, what? One says, add more temples. That's great.
That's great.
Add another day of general conference and more devotionals. I was like,
another day of general conference?
Someone really wants that? There's a person out there that wants that?
I'm already saying that evening session on Saturday night really just needs to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone said hire janitors for church buildings, pay people that work for that work. I was like,
I'm okay with that, actually.
I'm on board. Some of these are great. And then this one I loved, make the hot chocolate recipe from Nauvoo House Public. Yes. It's delicious. I've never had Nauvoo House hot chocolate.
I've never had it either.
I have a long time ago. It was very good.
Okay, well, since you are our expert on hot beverages, for that.
I know.
Apparently, I really like hot beverages. This is what I've learned.
All right. So
this one was my favorite. I had to give one last one. Someone wrote in and said, listen to what the Tribune has to say and then do the opposite. I'm sorry. People in Utah that hate on the Tribune are they give me so much entertainment. I just think it's funny. I don't live there, so I don't know much. I just know it just makes me laugh.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to my favorite segment, which is Mormons behaving badly. Now, going into this evening, I thought I could not find a Mormon behaving badly. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to have an episode and the Mormons have all behaved themselves. Mm-hmm. And then
what a dream.
I watched the 6:00 news tonight and I was like, oh no, Mormons have not behaved themselves. I have a Chad Daybell update. So that is my only Mormon behaving badly. He is set to begin trial on April 1st, April Fool's Day.
It's coming up.
I realize that that's kind of a joke. His lawyer, who is a gentleman by the name of John Pryor, has filed paperwork with the court saying, Judge, let me out of this case. He doesn't have any more money to pay me, and I can't represent him if I'm not being paid. So it will be very interesting to see what the judge does, because first of all, we are a little over 2 months out from trial. Yeah. We are about 10 weeks out from trial. And the judge has already postponed this trial a couple of times. Mm-hmm. He's not going to want to postpone it again. If a new lawyer comes on board, that new lawyer is going to have a legit argument to the judge, especially since it's a death penalty case, to say,
we need more time.
I'm going to need at least a year. And the judge is going to have to say, well, yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. John Pryor has been in this from the beginning. The judge does not have to let John Pryor out of this case.
Oh, really?
The judge could say, sorry, Mr. Pryor, suck it up. We're going to trial on April 1st.
So here's my question. He can't pay his attorney, so he's going to get a public defender.
He will end up with a public defender.
Could the court say, John Pryor, you're the public defender, we're going to pay you this much?
I believe the court could probably do that. I think ultimately the county is responsible for paying the cost of the public defender. So,
which is going to be a pay cut for him, I'm assuming.
It will be a pay cut for him, but that's better than getting no money. So I suppose that is always an option, is the county could say, look, we want to get this trial over with. We have gotten all of our witnesses here. We're geared up in 10 weeks. We are willing to pay him public defender rates, and the judge could go, you're staying in the trial.
So here's my big question. Do you think he really wants out because of the money, or because he's like, there's no way I'm going to be able to defend him well?
I really think it's the money.
Okay.
And here's why I really think it's the money. John Pryor sat through a good chunk of Lori's trial. And I have seen him, he really has worked this case. Chad didn't have a lot of money. John Pryor has a lien on his house right now for payment.
Gosh.
And I think the kids are living there right now and potentially maybe paying some rent money to John Pryor. My thought was, months ago, I was like, John Pryor had to have run out of money at this point in time. And so, now he's faced with the prospect of, this is literally going to tie me up for the next 4 months, and I am not going to have any income. And so I'm actually surprised it hasn't happened sooner.
Okay.
So,
interesting.
Wow, that's a lot.
Anyway.
Well, I hope it doesn't get delayed. My goal for 2024 would be for no more Daybells in the news by the end of 2024.
By the end of 2024.
I love that resolution. I love that New Year's resolution. Okay, well, let's move on to our favorite things. Now, before we talk about our favorite things, I did bring a food item for us to try tonight.
She loves the taste test.
So this is a new Oreo that I saw at Walmart this week, and it is called a black and white cookie flavor cream. Now, you've seen, if you go to New York, they have those black and white cookies. I think that is supposed to be a taste on the a take on the black and white cookie. It is, let me describe it. It is the vanilla Oreo. And when you open it up, one half of it is white cream and one half of it is chocolate.
Wait a minute. Open that back up again. Okay.
So,
I thought it would be like side to side.
Yeah, it's bottom and top.
Okay.
Now, they used to have this vanilla Oreo that just had chocolate cream, and that was legit my favorite Oreo, and they've discontinued it, and I don't know why.
Maybe this will be a good replacement.
So, I don't know if this will be a good replacement, because definitely the chocolate looks a lot darker flavored than the chocolate that was in the original Oreo, where there was a vanilla Oreo with chocolate. And again, this has some white frosting in it too. So,
well, I like a vanilla Oreo.
So, ladies, grab a cookie and let's just see what we think of these.
Yes, I'm on board. That's a good Oreo.
I'm on board too. It's good Oreo.
That's really good.
That's a good one. They've had some funky flavors. This one's good.
That one
is
really dangerous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. So we are all in favor of the black in favor of the flavor
5
of
stars.
the black and white cookie Oreo.
Okay.
All right. So let's move on to favorite things. Marianne, let's
my
start with you.
favorite thing this month is also food related, and it is something that I was influenced to buy by you. Not by an influencer, but by my big sister, which often happens. She influences me a lot. It is the Ninja Creamy. Did I tell you I got one?
I got one for Christmas too.
Tiffany and her whole family has acquired these within recent months.
Yes. And I got one for my birthday.
I just think I need one. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. It just is like an ice cream maker, but it's different. It can make sorbet. It can make like protein ice cream, regular ice cream.
Okay, so what's
frozen
your
yogurt? This is my favorite thing.
Okay, I want to hear your favorite thing.
Frozen yogurt.
Really?
So I take my kids' favorite yogurt. You could do it with Greek yogurt too.
Okay.
I haven't tried it with Greek yogurt yet, but my kids' favorite just vanilla yogurt is like a tart. What's the brand? It's like Mountain High vanilla, and it's pretty tart. I mean, it does have sugar, but not as much sugar as some of the crazy ones.
Okay.
All you do is put the yogurt in the cup, freeze it, and then you run it in the machine, and you know what it tastes just like? When you go to like the Froyo shop, the official Froyo shop, and they have that original tart flavor. That is what it tastes like.
Okay.
And then you put some fresh fruit on top.
Oh my gosh, it sounds delicious.
Oh, I'm going to
It
have to
is
try that
delicious.
in mine. So you're not even adding any protein powder or anything in
just the yogurt.
See, I'm still trying to perfect my recipes.
Mhm.
What about you? Have you perfected a recipe in your Ninja?
The only one I've made, so I've only made one, and I made like a raspberry blackberry ice cream,
Okay.
and it was delicious.
So how did you do it?
Just raspberries, blackberries, smushed them up, added a little lime juice, threw in some cream, froze it.
Oh.
That was delicious.
See, I have been experimenting around with using the Fairlife milk because I'm trying to do shakes that are high in protein or ice cream that's high in protein. So I've been experimenting with the Fairlife milk and then adding like protein powder to it.
Which I've done that too.
I want to do the protein powder.
It's not very sweet.
Well, this is what I've discovered with the protein ones. Fresh fruit on top.
Oh,
is a must. The fresh fruit on top takes away the aftertaste,
Okay.
And it adds sweetness.
Okay.
I love that.
Well, and to add some sweetness, I have used the sugar-free puddings so that I'm not getting the calories there. And the sugar-free puddings, I did learn you don't want to put in just a couple tablespoons of the sugar-free pudding, not the whole thing. Not the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So, well, very good. I'm so glad I could influence you.
I love it so much.
Okay, Holly, what is your favorite thing?
Oh, this was every year for Christmas we get a game to play.
Okay.
And this was this year's game, and I loved it. It's called Bonsai.
Okay.
Ooh.
And you basically create trees, and you get points and stuff for that, and you can I don't know. You can get.
So how did you find this game?
Yeah,
so
I've never heard of this.
Every year I go online and look for the top games of 2023, and it was in the top 10 of whatever site that I was looking at, and I'm I kind of like that. And my daughter's in Japan, so I'm like, this resonates, so we'll play this. And we had a great time with it. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, I love it. So I have to try it.
It's very cool. Okay, well, my favorite thing is Miss America. So, I'm a pageant girl. You all know that.
Yes, we do.
This is not a revelation to anybody. So, the Miss America pageant is currently going on with the finals on Sunday. I am having a big Miss America party at my house. So, if you want to come over Sunday night, 5 o'clock, we're doing Miss America party at my house. And I've always loved it ever since I was a kid. I have a little skin in the game this year. So I have a niece, although she's a blood niece to my ex-husband. So she's
like a former niece.
She's like a former niece, but the problem is his family still thinks I'm family. So it's really it all works. She is Miss Nebraska, and she is back there competing, and a big chunk of my ex-husband's family is in Orlando supporting her. Her name is Morgan Baird. She's just been so much fun to watch. She's a dancer. She's incredible. Just really, really fun.
Fantastic.
My second favorite is Miss Utah. And I want to talk about the evening gown dress that Miss Utah had. Miss Utah is a convert to the church, and she's also a returned missionary. She said that she was going to try and do modest clothing for the pageant. And I was like, oh, good luck with that, honey. I have never seen an evening dress that is modest that didn't look like your grandmother should be wearing it. Mm-hmm. Girlfriend slayed it. So let me pull it up here, and I'll just describe it to you. It is a black velvet dress. It's got a high neckline, and it's bejeweled all around the neckline. It's got really cute puffy sleeves, and it's bejeweled all around the end of the sleeve collar. And she is stunning in it.
Pretty. Beautiful hourglass
it's a
figure.
Beautiful hourglass figure with a train. I was like, that is the best modest evening dress I have ever seen in my whole pageant wearing, participating, watching life.
I'm very impressed.
That's really pretty.
So I'm wishing good luck to both Morgan as well as Miss Utah. Her name is Sarah Sun. I believe we have featured her before on This Week in Mormons when she won the crown in June. And but I podcasted with Holly in June. So maybe Holly and I talked about it. I know that I've talked about her. Anyway, amazing girl. She's a BYU student. We wish them the best of luck. So that is my favorite thing.
So fun.
Okay. Well, that's kind of a wrap for today's episode, which was brought to you by our wonderful sponsor, Postum. For all all our fellow Latter-day Saints, grab this amazing coffee alternative on the coffee aisle at your Smith's grocer or your favorite store. Explore more and order online at postum.com. Thanks for tuning in, and may your mornings be as delightful as your cup of Postum. Also, I just want to give a plug out for our social media, for Facebook, for X, and for Instagram. You can find us on all of those. You can reach out and contact us at contact@thisweekinmormons.com. And I want to put a plug in for Patreon. If you want to donate a couple bucks a month to help us keep the lights on, you can become a Patreon subscriber. We do exclusive Patreon content. In fact, all three of us are going to do some exclusive Patreon content tonight. And so we're going to tease that here. We are going to talk about garments on our exclusive Patreon content tonight.
Which we've had many a discussion on garments.
We have.
This is new.
And Holly and Ariane and I have been saying for months, we need to get together and do a Patreon thing that just talks about garments. So finally the planets aligned. And so we will be doing that after the episode. So we'd encourage you to become a Patreon subscriber and you can hear what we have to say on that topic. So TWIM Nation, thank you very much for joining us. And we appreciate your continued support of the podcast. Thank you.